you catch up on what's expected from each of these teams by their insiders who, to this point, Joe, to a man, all agree their team is going to beat their win total. And Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans, no different. We just got done talking to him. Some great insight. I don't want to take anything away from any of these insiders covering their teams, but they all like the over. And Tennessee is juiced to the under at just about every book, right? 6.5 wins, but juiced to the under. And a lot of that has to do with, hey, new head coach, quarterback we don't really have a ton of belief in, musical chairs at wide receiver, still question marks on the offensive line, as well as the front seven. And okay, that's great. You went out and got L'Jarius Sneed, but that's not enough to help a sinking defense, perhaps. And that's why they're minus 165 to finish dead last in the AFC South. It's why, like I said, they're juiced to the under on their win total, and they're plus 400 to make the playoffs, minus 550 to not make the playoffs. I don't know if they're 5 or 6 wins bad. I do see that they've made a couple of those little improvements. Like we talked about, Ridley, Tyler Boyd. Sneed is more than a little improvement. It's a major improvement over what they had last year in the secondary. But they're definitely not better than a 7-win team. And I think that's why that total is just about spot on at 6.5.
I will say, of the guests we've had, of the 6, I would say that Tyler has done the best job of convincing me that it could be very good. It could be good with the Titans. And this is a team that I've been very down on. And maybe that's more so because of the rest of the division. But I will say, when I was going over what occurred last year, it's like, okay, Levis was better than what I remember, because I do remember those dangerous throws that he was talking about, those near interceptions. But just breaking down the numbers, that's pretty good. 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for a guy without many weapons, without an offensive line, as a rookie, was not heralded as the best quarterback coming out of that class. And you saw some of the fight. You saw some of the explosion. That is possible. This is a complete change of the guard. It's not just Vrabel, but to Callahan. And I remember at the time, they were getting crushed. They were getting crushed for getting rid of Vrabel and bringing in Callahan. I understand exactly what they're doing. They are changing course here. So now we're in the post-Derrick Henry era. It's going to take a little time to adjust my eyes, right? Because we're used to them just grinding it out every single win, and they're protecting their young quarterback, especially the left side. You mentioned that. Last 2 first-round picks, left side. It was the left guard last year, Skoronski out of Northwestern, and this year it was the left tackle with Latham out of Alabama. When nobody was saying that Latham was going to be the guy. Everybody was saying Joe Alt at number 7 overall, and then it ends up being Latham. So that was interesting as far as the betting perspective. But 6-11 last year, I think more people viewed it as a bit of a disaster. I was surprised at the number of one-score games they were in. 12 one-score games in a year that where things went poorly. More losses than wins. 3 overtime games, 2 of them were losses. The one-score games, 7 were losses, but they did get 5 wins. So I wouldn't sit here and say it was completely unlucky. Levis took a lot of sacks. Part of that on the offensive line, part of that being a rookie quarterback. Took 64 of them. I think that's going to change. They needed to move on from Derrick Henry. Now, maybe he's going to be in a position in Baltimore where he's just racking up the touchdowns. That's fine. I still think they did the right move. Is Pollard the guy? I don't know. It was a disappointing season last year in Dallas for him. The numbers are not high as far as the props go. I don't love bringing in all these 30-year-old receivers. I'll say that. Like, okay, how many guys you think the makeup of a guy with a 32-year season and the age 30 season for Ridley, they're going to explode, but they're getting better. I think the approach has been smart. And the underrated move is Cushenberry, the center. That guy has allowed 2 sacks in 2 years. 2 sacks in 2 years, only 16 pressures. So now you're really fortifying that offensive line, where that was just such a weakness from the past. And now they're going to go from a run-heavy team to a pass-heavy team. Not yet, but I think there are some things to get excited about. And, just after our conversation, I'm not sitting here saying I'm betting the over 6.5, but that's a team that's going to compete. They're going to compete.
Honestly, it's something that I said during the season last year covering the team. Mike Vrabel is a good coach, but he wasn't the right coach for where the Tennessee Titans were at. So I think it was smart to make that move to Brian Callahan. Callahan is a quarterback whisperer of sorts. He's worked with Peyton Manning in Denver, Matthew Stafford in Detroit, obviously Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. And when you're looking at the Tennessee Titans, they made a lot of improvements on the roster, but what really is going to matter is Will Levis and his development and his improvement. So getting a guy like Brian Callahan, who has shown not only did he craft an offense that worked for Joe Burrow, but they also had success with Jake Browning last year when Joe Burrow got hurt. So Brian Callahan has shown throughout his career that he really understands what quarterbacks want, what quarterbacks need. And I think that makes it the smart choice for them to go with Brian Callahan as the head coach. Obviously, he brings over his father, Bill Callahan, one of the most widely respected offensive line coaches in NFL history. The Titans had a severe weakness on the offensive line, so that should help. Again, Mike Vrabel was a good coach, and I know a lot of people who don't follow the Titans on a day-to-day basis will think, man, Mike Vrabel, why would you get rid of him? But I think that Brian Callahan is the right coach for where the Tennessee Titans are at as a team, and he could be a great coach as well. So good move by them to make that move, even though it was met with some public backlash.
Yeah, Will Levis's passing yardage prop for this season right now at BetMGM, 3,465 and a half yards.
Over.
Tyler says hammer the over.
That
Tyler
over.
Rowland.
They're going to pass so much more. Last year, the Titans were second fewest in the NFL in situation neutral pass rate. So the Titans just did not throw the ball under Mike Vrabel. They didn't want to throw the ball. They wanted to hammer that run game. And Brian Callahan, everywhere he's been, they throw the football, and he understands. He's already referencing things like EPA per play, WAR, and all these advanced analytics that show that passing is by far the more important feature of an offense over the running game. You throw to score, you run to win. Get up by throwing the ball, run the ball to seal away the win. That's the way that it's supposed to be. And now that you have a coach that subscribes to that philosophy, I think the Titans could go from one of the least throwing teams in the NFL to one of the most throwing teams in the NFL overnight. So I would definitely hit that over on the passing yards for Levis, and only injury I think would prevent him from getting over 3,400.
Do you know, Chris Mack, how many times the Tennessee Titans are favored this season?
Oh, I guess 3 or 4.
The answer is 1.
Oh, jeez. New England? That's it?
Yup. That's the game. They are favored once this year, November 3rd against the New England Patriots. They are a 3.5-point home favorite. They are an underdog in every other game.
I thought they'd get Washington, maybe. I guess since it's on the road, they don't. I thought they'd get at least one home divisional game against, like, Indy, maybe, where they might be favored. No?
There are 4 games that they are underdogs of less than a field goal. So, if you want to make the case, it's a coin flip game. Okay, maybe we can get there. They host the Colts as a 1.5-point dog. Host the Vikings, 1-point dog, to your point.
Okay.
At the Commanders, 1.5-point dog. And then the very next week, hosting the Jaguars, a 1.5-point dog divisional matchup.
Okay.
Get kind of close there. So, yeah. But one
so
game there.
So there's 5. There's 5, right?
Oh, let's give them all to the Titans. Yeah, let's give them all.
I'm trying to find some opportunity on the Titans here. Maybe it's on some of these individual player prop bets. Tyler Rowland, again, was all about Will Levis. 3,465 passing yards and a hook. And he said way over because, and this makes more sense to me than, they went out and added Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd, and all of a sudden that's going to fix everything. Or they improved the offensive line. That's going to fix everything. No, because there will be hiccups for J.C. Latham as a rookie left tackle, as good as he may be. There will be issues with that receiving core because, to your point, it's not the youngest in the world. There will be issues with Levis, sure. But I think where I can start to, again, buy into some of what Tyler is selling about the Titans, and Levis in particular, is the coaching staff. Callahan comes in and maybe makes sense, clears some things up for Will Levis, a guy who looked like he was playing purely on instinct at times last year, right? And maybe he eases off of that throttle a little bit on Levis's desire to just run around and make things happen, his instinct, and says, no, you're going to stand back there. You're going to read the progression. You're going to get rid of the ball, and makes him a little bit more efficient. But 34.65 feels like a big number for Levis passing yards wise. First 4 weeks at Chicago, home to the Jets, home to the Packers, at the Dolphins. I mean, you squeeze one dub out of those 4, I would think. You get into October. After the bye, you've got Indy at home. Okay, divisional game, but you just mentioned Richardson and what he may be capable of. Then you go to Buffalo and Detroit. Yikes. And then you get to host the Patriots. Congratulations. There's win number 2 on the year, most likely. Before you go to LA to face the Chargers. Minnesota at home. Okay, and maybe we'll call that another winnable game, certainly. And then at Houston, at Washington, another winnable game, but it's on the road. Before you wrap up with 2 against Jacksonville, Cincy, a trip to Indy, and Houston in Week 17. I think the schedule drives this win total down under 6.5 as much as anything.
Yep. Jake, what kind of hell is it going to be if Will Levis and the Titans stroll into Soldier Field Week 1 and take down Caleb?
I mean,
crap.
the city might burn to the ground.
We are not joking.
I'm not joking. Like, I might have to put Lapka on a watch list, like for 48 hours.
It is
That
the expectations are so high. Yeah.
Wild overreaction to Week 1. There's a great spot for wild overreaction to either side in Week 1.